Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Sackdown. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Nisqy was one of the first guests we ever had back on the Crackdown in 2020. And we covered most of his career, like pre-2020 when he was in NA with Envy, when he went back to Europe, when he was with Splice, then came back to NA. So I thought the perfect place to start with Nisqy would be that period when you went back to Europe, because a lot was happening during that offseason. I know that you originally wanted to stay with Cloud9, then there was that situation with Palafox and you like in Korea, who's going to get higher in solo queue and all this type of stuff. So I feel like this would be a great place to start for you. We could kind of lead into every question we have through this lens. So Nisqy, tell us about your time coming back to Europe post Cloud9, like that whole situation, how it went down, and just like how you felt being back in Europe in 2021.
I mean, to be fair, I kind of wanted to come back to EU back then already, but in my head it was like, if I would come back to EU, I need a good team, or else I would rather stay in NA and make Worlds in NA, because I think EU was pretty stacked back then. So I was like, okay, if I come back to EU, one, I will get less money, because NA back then was like giving way more than EU. It was kind of hype still back then, and then I was like, yeah, do I go back to EU? And then I was like, if there's a good team, sure. If there's a roster around me, sure. And if the money is not like too big of a difference, because I would also get my green card, I think, in the next year. So I was like, okay, I guess I will live in NA for now. But then I think that's when Fnatic, I believe, went to C9, or like Fnatic talked to Jack and whatnot. And I was like, yeah, Fnatic sounds good. One of the best orgs in EU. Good roster as well. I was like, yeah, I mean, I want to try it and see how it goes, because I also wasn't sure of my level compared to like EU mids, because everyone was like memeing NA because we're not doing very well, right? And I was like, okay, am I actually like good enough and whatnot? Inside of me, I knew I was, but I had to prove like everyone. I remember like Fnatic fans were like, oh no, like why are we getting this NA player? Like he went to NA, he just wants money. He's probably washed and whatever. So then I came to Fnatic, and that's when I think I was playing with Selfmade, Bwipo. Was it Upset Healy? I believe that was the roster.
Yes, sir. You remember your coach by any chance?
Coach? I don't remember. I mean, he was kind of useless. So
yeah. Okay. All right. Okay.
No, I mean,
and don't talk down on Tolkien like that, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, so that roster was fun. I mean, we made Worlds like through an insane like run. I still remember like we had to win every game, and it was like TF meta. I think it was like TF, Rise, like supportive mids meta. And then we went to Worlds. Then sadly like the incident happened at Worlds, right? And then I was like, oh shit, what do I do now, you know? And then that's when I got benched. But the problem is that I got benched like pretty late. I mean, I kind of knew I was getting benched because it was like kind of sus with Fnatic. And then C9 reached out. And I knew Jack. I knew Jack very well, and they didn't have the best year back then as well. I was like, "Yo, you wanna come back?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then negotiations were going on, and I think it was for like 50K. I think if Fnatic didn't let me go, because I think Jack sold them at a price, and then he wanted the same price, but Fnatic said, "Oh yeah, but now he has more value," and blah blah blah. And then that's when I was on the bench for a while.
Before we get into your period with Mad Lions, I want to talk to you about like a couple of these things here, because the first thing that you said was like when you came back, the reception from the community, which obviously was like in my mind it was pretty unexpected. I mean, at this time, this is when it was Fnatic versus G2 pretty much every single split. Perks was no longer on G2, and the huge signing was like, oh, with Reckless going over to G2, now G2 is going to win the league, guaranteed. Everyone else is playing for second place. This is the narrative in the community. And when you got signed, a lot of times, like a lot of the people on Reddit, a lot of the discussion was that like, oh, Fnatic's not trying to win. Like if they get Nisqy, they're just playing for like second. They're not putting together a competitive roster. So how did you feel about like this period of the community? Because your value earlier on that year was super high when Cloud9 was winning everything. When you guys were like 35-2, you went on that insane run. Everyone was hyping you up. Then the roster fails to make Worlds, and suddenly people are talking about you like you're dog shit. So like, how did you feel like at this period? Because I mean, before that, most people considered you the best mid in NA.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in esports there's this thing where like you play your last best of, and then if you do bad, then you're probably very shit at the game and you should not play League again. And then if you do very well, then everyone thinks you're the GOAT. I think happened with like a lot of players, right? I think, for example, when Rox replaced Hilly at Worlds, or Bean replaced Upset at Worlds, and they had like one decent best of, then everyone thinks they're the GOAT and that they should be in like a top team in LEC. And then when they've a shit series, they're like, oh, they're the worst players. They should never touch League. So for me, I didn't care much because I knew I was good back then. Back then, I'm still good.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Yeah. Back then, for sure.
I mean, I think that's when it's important that like as a player, you have like the confidence because reading like, I don't know, maybe like 1,000, 2,000 messages on like how you're shit. If you are a very low confidence player, it can like hurt you very badly. And I think especially for rookies nowadays, it can be rough, right? But for me, I didn't care much. Like I was like, okay, I mean, I'm one of the best. I just have to prove it, and then people will just shut up. So that was kind of my philosophy and like my view of the situation. And I mean, to be fair, in EU, I knew no one thought I would be good, anyways, because like everyone thought NA players were just shit. Because they always thought like EU was better and like NA is playing bad and whatever. Soluk is shit and whatnot. So I knew it would be like bad, but I didn't know it was gonna be like this bad, right?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I usually don't care what the community says because like if my team trusts me or if my coach trusts me, like the organization trusts me and whatnot, then I will just prove that I'm good enough. And then if you're not good enough, then of course you get benched. And if you're good, then you stay, right?
I'm curious, Nisqy, because this is not something that we ever talked about, you know, like when you jumped into Fnatic, we both jumped into Fnatic, right? Like in terms of like what went down in the off season, because it was also very strange, right? It's like the person who vouched for you the most back then, who wanted to play with you no matter what, was Reckless, right? It's like,
oh
Reckless
yeah,
really pushed. He wanted to play with you so badly, and that was like the big selling point. Because at the time, I was also like I was also not super sold. I was like, Nisqy, he's the jungle whisperer. I watch him play. There's something about this. I'm not completely sold. And then Reckless did the vouch. Okay, we everything was in preparation for Reckless. And I was like joining that team. At least from my end, it felt like we inherited all the issues from all the previous years. It's like we entered the haunted house. I'm curious from your side, especially the spring split. That was such a shit show. I want you to tell the story through your lens because that shit was wild.
Man, okay, so actually I will go back from the beginning because like, okay, first when Fnatic wanted me, I was like, okay, pretty nice. And then I think it was you and I think like the upper management, they were like, yeah, like Reckless vouch for you and whatnot. But then they were like, but we're not sure if he's signing with us yet or if he's going to G2. So then my first thing, I messaged Reckless, I was like, yo, like, are you going to Fnatic or to G2? And then he's like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not certain yet, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, because if I join Fnatic and then you're leaving, it's kind of sus if you're the one that vouched for me. And then I think one day before I signed, I messaged him. I was like, yo, if I sign, do you come? Because like it was pretty late in the off season. Like everyone was waiting on the Reckless move before making like on any other like roster decisions. And he was like, I cannot guarantee anything. It's like a 50-50. And then after that, in my mind, I was like, okay, what options do I have? I had like other teams in EU, and then I had Fnatic. Like Fnatic was kind of the only like top option back then. And I was like, I mean, knowing Fnatic, even if Reckless leaves, there would be like other AD carriers that would be very happy to join the roster. But the problem I had, like the mistake I made back then is like, I didn't check with every single member of the team if they had problems before. Because like I joined Fnatic then, and then we had Upset, we had Hilly, Selfmade, and Bwipo. Then first scrims, or like first 2 or 3 scrims, like my support wants to do one thing, my jungler wants to do one thing, and my top laner like supports, like he has the same idea as Hilly, but then Selfmade doesn't want to do what Hilly says, and then Hilly hates what Selfmade does. I was like, what is going on, you know? And then apparently that was already like that for the last year. So I was like, well, I don't know what I entered. So then I was just trying to glue like both in like in the way we play. Like when Hilly made an insane engage, I was like, you see, like Selfmade, like it works. And then when Selfmade farmed a lot, I was like, you see, Hilly, like that also works. But in the end, I feel like it was so hard to balance because they had 2 opposite ways of playing. And also, I would say like even like humanly, I don't think they were matching at all, kinda. I think it was just very rough. But in the end, I was like, I'm gonna do my best and hopefully we're good enough to make Worlds because that was kind of my goal going back to EU. And I guess, yeah, that's kind of what happened. And then in the end, there was like the roster swap with Bwipo jungle. Yeah, it was a bit of a shit fest, yeah.
You know, the weirdest part was, right? It's like Bwipo and Hilly didn't want to play with Selfmade. That was like the conversations in that off season. Because I came in very late in the team too, right? It's like I came in and the players were already set in stone. But I was like, I'm joining Fnatic. It's like I'm here to learn the methods of players that have beaten me in the past. It's like I'm gonna see how they work. But it's like referencing back to your initial point where you mentioned it's like the last games that you played are so crucial. Like Selfmade's value was so high afterwards, right? It's like at the Graves games, he was like farming super well, and he was doing like like him playing the farming meta was like really, really good for him. So his value was through the roof. But everyone was having like disagreements with how he played, and especially when like Bwipo and Hilly are so philosophically aligned. I remember the first conversation I had with Bwipo was like, I made a deal with Dardo, boom, everything is done. It's like, I'm joining Fnatic. First call I had with Bwipo, just 3 hours of him reviewing all the things that Selfmade did, like just his mistakes.
I mean, I could add some... I could add a little bit of context here, because one thing that was really surprising is like this world's happened, and I did an episode of the Crackdown with Bwipo in that offseason. And what people were so surprised about is like in the episode, Bwipo's like, I was considering like maybe I go mid, or maybe we like bench you like from the team. Like he was like talking about Selfmade getting like bench from the team, and this is when everyone thinks that Selfmade is a god. You know, he had like that Eve Lucian meta with Nemesis where you couldn't give them Lucian because he would just play Eve and he would just 1v9 the entire game. And Bwipo ended up saying in that interview, he's like, yeah, I'm like thinking about like, maybe I should play a different lane. Maybe like Selfmade should be changed and all this type of stuff. And I thought that was crazy at the time, because, you know, the best junglers in the EU were considered Jankos, Selfmade. Like no one else even exists. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in. But yeah, continue with what you're going to say, Yamato.
No, it's just completely like I remember Bwipo was so unhinged in this one. Like you brought me back, because I remember like we're about to sign Upset 2. He's like, Upset is a choker. It's like saying it in the fucking episode. Like the only people he said anything nice about is like, Nisqy's alright. I like Nisqy. He seems good. Like Bwipo was on a whole nother level in terms of like the bullets he was firing. But it was so strange because my experience then is, I'm curious on your side. It's like the expectation joining like these players was that they're gonna show me like how it's done. But then I realized that like the illusion gets shattered so quickly, and it's like you're just dealing with the same issues but differently, you know, with the same players. I don't know how it was on your end, like after the first split and your expectation coming into the second, because it was so strange. It was such a unique experience.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I thought like, okay, I mean, Fnatic is a top team, so I would expect like the discipline to be pretty high. Like the players to give like good feedback to each other, like no mental booms and whatnot. Then I join and it's like the complete shit fest, and I was like, okay, I guess it's the same in every single team. And yeah, I mean, it was a pretty rough season, and also I think it was when COVID was, I believe. So we're playing like remote and whatnot. And then like we changed roster, right? I think we changed Selfmade for Bwipo, and we got Adam. Adam is someone that I knew kind of back then because he was also in KC, right? So I was like, yo, Kote, I called like the GM and I was like, yo, like maybe I can young Adam to Fnatic. And then like I had to kind of convince Adam to join because he was doing good in KC and whatnot. And then I felt like that was my first time that I kind of convinced a player to join a team, and that I had to kind of take care of a player. And it's so weird because like I'm also a player, you know, and I was not that mature. Like back then I was fine, right? But like not as much as like today, for example. And the worst thing was that Bwipo thought Adam was shit, and Adam thought Bwipo was shit at top. And then when there was feedback on what Adam was doing in game, like Adam would not listen to Bwipo. And then when Adam was doing something that he thinks was good, Bwipo thought it was bad. And like the matchups and like everything was complete opposite. I was like, what is going on, you know? And then I remember I was talking to Adam, I was like, just do whatever you want. Like you don't have to listen to him if you don't want. If you want tips, you can ask him. But I really don't want you to have like a conversation every day on this matchup goes like that. I think you should move here. You should not TP there, blah, blah, blah. Because I felt like every day it was like a mini fight, kind of like it was such a weird like mood. And then I think that's when Yamato brought like I don't know. I think we were playing like Mortal Kombat and like chess and whatever to like make the mood
Nice.
like better because it was a shit
Nice.
fest. So I think we fixed it like pretty well, I would say, in the end. But yeah, pretty stressful. I think one of my probably my most stressful year, to be fair, in League.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, I want to ask about the Adam point, but I also want to talk about just the overall level because you said it earlier that at this time people considered EU to be significantly better than NA. This is after G2 had made, World Finals in 2019, Fnatic made World Finals 2018, 2020. G2 had just made semifinals of Worlds, and the idea was that like G2 and Europe as a whole was like competing with the top, and NA was just a dog shit region. So did you feel when you came back to EU that the level was like that much higher than the level of LCS, or how did you feel about the level? Because you actually played in both regions during that time period.
I mean, I did feel like the games in EU were going way faster, and I feel like people were better mechanically. That was for sure. I think people were better in lane. I mean, when you lane against like Caps and Humanoid, it's different than laning against like Jensen and Bjergsen, for example, right? Because they're more like passive in some ways. I just feel like the level was more like pushed to the limit rather than farm and scale, which was the NA meta back then. But I felt like in general, I didn't see much difference. Don't know, outside of the game, everyone was the same. Like maybe it was more like team. Like I felt like more as a team, I guess, in EU than NA, because I feel like NA scrims are done. Some people just go home, or some people just go out, and then you don't see them in the evening. Rather than EU, I feel like we were most likely like together, and when we go eat like together. So I feel like it was more like family vibe rather than business vibe, I guess, is how I phrase it. And I mean, I knew that I would like EU more because when I played in Splice back then, I really liked it. And I feel like EU people in general feels more like nice, I guess, to speak to compared to NA. I feel like NA is mostly for business. Like the way they see it, like LCS product is a business. Meanwhile, in EU, you have like shocks and you have like lore and whatnot, right? That I know very well. So I feel like it's more of like a family rather than business. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna. I mean, I guess we can. I want to ask both of you here, but Yamato can chime in on this first. The dynamic between Bwipo and Adam. It seems very weird that a new player comes in, has this legendary top laner in Bwipo. Bwipo had been considered, one of the best tops in the region, probably like second best after Wonder. I mean, some people had Alfari in the conversation, but the whole idea was that Alfari couldn't lane. Was it weird for you as a coach that like Adam comes in and he's disagreeing with everything that Bwipo is saying? Because you'd think that Bwipo is like a guy that would be a huge tool. And even the community thought that Adam would be so good at top because he had a player like Bwipo being able to tell him all this information about the lane. So how did you feel about the situation?
I think, on Adam's end, like it was tough to get through to him. Like I was like me and Shaves, we gave him a lot of feedback too. And in the end, what we called it is we are planting seeds. We say we give feedback now and maybe in a month it changes. So nice. It was very, very hard to get through to him because I think from Adam's side, there was like in the beginning, he would like randomly just fly back to France and like come back and just be late for scrims because he missed his flight. And I invited Adam to my house. I'm like, Adam, you need to get serious. Like this is the real deal. Like people will only get chances once like this. And he would like go to the manager and say, I'm flying to France now. And then he would say to the manager, Yamato said it's okay. And then I hear from Chris, I'm like, oh, he's in France now. So you said it's okay. I'm like, this rascal, like he's just being like a villain. But the way I like understood it and how I understood him is like, I think the change is like, I think everything that he did from that point, like from the beginning of his career to that point, like everything he touched turned into gold, like everything that he did went right. It's like the KC run, the LFL run, like EMA Masters, like everything that he touched just turned into gold. And I think he didn't want to lose that part of himself. And when he got feedback from many, many places, I think that was like new and different. I think that his ego was at an all-time high, in this moment. And I think that when you have a person like that requires patience in those moments. You need to give a person like this patience. Bwipo is not a patient person. Bwipo is the opposite. Like if Bwipo listens to you, like if you sometimes players they are a little bit more emotional. They say things that are not rational. You know,
Yep.
It's like they just vent. They say things that are not rational. And then Bwipo hears this, and he would just like go insane. He would do like these movements, you know, like when I'm like giving Alan feedback, he would just like
I've seen it, bro.
He would just like react,
face,
you know. And they would just clash all the time because, like, I think from Alan's perspective, he was giving to the team, and from Bwipo's perspective, it's like, oh, he's just not listening to me. It's like, I have this experience. What's not happening? And I think Adam needed to go, like, in that moment, I think he needed to, like, discover himself, you know. I think the best thing for Adam in that moment was he needed to, like, fall down and rise again, you know, to build up and really cherish the opportunity that he had, because I think everything came in as quite a shock, you know. And it's like everything went fast, right? It's like LEC, you move to Berlin, you do everything new, lifestyle change, everything changes, and you are jumping into Fnatic, which was already like a very high stress environment, you know, with the players that we have. Like the bar is super high, and every day was like a war for us. It's like we almost didn't make worlds, but we slipped through. And like, I remember those games like Nisqy, like with the TF card killing the TF 1v1, boom, in the Leblanc game, or like fucking our series against G2 was like the most mental story. And it's like, even in that moment, you know, it's like if something just went wrong in those moments, all of a sudden maybe all of us would just be unemployed for the rest of our career, you know. That's crazy. So that's my side of it.
So from what I was getting, Nisqy, it's like it seems like you had like you were more like Adam biased during this time. Like you wanted like to help Adam, like you understood him more than the Bwipo side. Like, did you have any problems like playing with Bwipo at this point yourself, or was it just kind of like a situation where you just understood Adam better than Bwipo did?
I mean, I think. Like, okay, I don't think Bwipo works very well with rookies because I think he's very impatient. And like, I understood that very well. For example, if Adam gives a point, but he's emotional and he says, no, that's the better play, then Bwipo believes that Adam actually thinks that it's the better play. And he goes on for like 10 minutes on telling him like, bro, how is that the better play? And blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, when he's just tilted, he made a mistake, but he's a rookie. He probably hasn't gotten that much feedback before, so I was like, I would just let him be, you know. So for me, it was like I feel like we didn't give space to Adam to like grow, and we wanted him to become like good very, very fast. But like when you take a kid of like 17 or 18 years old that has, I think it has maybe like one split of experience or like two splits maybe, into like LEC against like the top teams like Wonder and like G2 and whatever. I feel like it was a bit optimistic from G2 from Bwipo's point of view. And I think Bwipo, the problem I had was that I felt like he was getting very emotional because he got benched and he had to go roll swap to jungle, but he thought someone worse was playing his lane. I think that was the big problem. And also I think before that, Bwipo's split was not the greatest. So he felt like he could probably do way better than what he did, but then he wasn't given the chance because they wanted to replace him, but then he had to go jungle, right? So it was like Healy and Bwipo against Adam, and then it was me backing up Adam, and then it was like Upset was just there in the middle, like just being there. So it was rough. I feel like there was like two sides. There was the Bwipo Healy and then Upset alone, and it was me and Adam. We're not like as a 5, except towards the end, I think, where everyone wanted to actually make worlds. Like we're like, okay, it's our last shot, like let's do it. And then I think that's when we actually started playing human League of Legends, and that's when we made worlds, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's such a crucial thing for us. Like in the end, I remember, like not in the end, but in the middle, at some point, I managed to convince Bwipo that he shouldn't try, and like he shouldn't try in the sense of like trying to change Adam. It's like our players at a certain point we needed to come to terms with what we were, and kind of like it's like imagine it's like playoffs is kind of you are going into waters with whatever ship you have. You know, and you need to accept that that's your ship, and you need to fucking row. And our ship had holes, but we had our tape. You know, Upset invented the whole thing. It's like we're on a mountain. You know, just peace. It's like Adam dies on level 3 gank when he gets cold. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's peace. He does his moments. Sometimes he 1v2. Sometimes he picks Darius and pops off. You know, it's like we had to come to terms with what we had, and I think this went such a long way because I think everyone were specialists in their own way, because in the end, like everyone participated in like the identity. It's like we were always pathing bot. Everybody knew it, but we were very good at that because we just leaned into it super hard. And in the end, we beat G2, and that felt fantastic.
Yeah, what I remember about that split was just, I don't know, like Adam was just somehow in Nisqy's lane, level 3 every game. Like, I don't know how he got there. Like, he would just end up there.
Game.
And the thing that was crazy about it is that most of the time when people would like end up in somebody else's lane, it's like, oh, he like pushed in a wave, he has a timer, he has TP. He'd be doing this like without TP. So he would grief his entire like lane cheater recall. Like he would have a perfect timing to be able to base, and he would just be in Nisqy's lane and then go back top and have to catch top. And then he's down TP. He has like no TP advantage. So he can't even get back into the lane, and his lane is just like fucked until somebody helps him. So that was like the crazy thing to me. I'm like, why does he just go mid every game? It like doesn't matter if he's playing Renekton, Darius, Olaf. He's just always somehow in Nisqy's lane. Like it's just so crazy
Adam's
to watch.
laning phase was one of the craziest laning phase I've ever seen. Like I don't know, he solo kills like wave is pushing to him perfectly. He randomly runs mid, and then
he could have just back
100 HP going back top. I'm like, do I help you now, or like what am I supposed to do? You know.
This is just what I guess Bwipo would probably be on his case about. It's like, just hit B. Like you killed him. Just hit B. The wave is coming back to you.
He was telling him so much, like just base, you know? Like it's a perfect base. And others like, no, I can roam mid, like I can kill mid, you know.
I respect that because I feel like right now when you watch Pro League, it's so much about tempo. People are so cognizant of how tempo affects the game, and that just seems like a new player. Like that's how it used to be in League of Legends. People had no idea about tempo, like good base timers, anything like that. It was just like you just try to fucking roam around the map and kill people.
Yeah,
you just go fight and see what's good. Yeah, no, that's it. Those were great times for EU League of Legends. So one question I had is, you've been on a bunch of different teams, and I've had this experience too, where there's a point where you need to band-aid the team. Like you need to just like commit to whatever the identity is. But how do you find that point within a team? Like, are you better now being in so many teams of like the point where you realize we have to commit on one identity or we're completely fucked? Or like, how do you gauge when you should keep your strategies broad? Because every team at the beginning, you want to be able to play everything, right? You want to be able to play all the different picks, all the different, like whatever the meta is, you want to be able to play that. And then there's a point where you're scrimming and you're just losing all the time. And you're like, okay, this is just not us. Like it's not working.
Yeah.
So for you, like, how do you find this moment where you hard commit on styles? Because that's something I've noticed about your teams. Like your teams generally hard commit on styles. Like for example, this split, I see Isma was just like playing Sejuani every game. Like AP junglers were all over the place. It's like Sejuani, Maokai every single fucking game. So how do you find this point now after playing for so many years?
I mean, for me, like the view I had of like mid lane was always around your jungler. I believed in a thing where if your mid laner is very well coordinated with your jungler, then there's a high chance that you win the game. Which is kind of what I did in C9 with Blabber, for example. Like I joined
Svenskeren.
And Svenskeren. And I was like playing these mages and whatnot. But then my jungler would invade, but I don't have push if I play Orianna, or if I play Azir, I get pushed in. And then after some weeks or like some days, you're like, okay, like we can't win on these champs, It's like I'm playing Azir, I lose every game. I'm playing Orianna, I'm losing every game. And then I pick like a random Lissandra and we just win. And I'm like, maybe I guess that's what we have to play. And I think usually coaches help with that as well. Like they believe, I believe every coach believes that like a player has some type of like identity, right? And I think, for example, me for a long time, I've had the facilitator view, I guess, of mid lane rather than hard carry. And I think that's what happened in C9 is like I was playing mostly for Blabber, and that's how we won games. I also had a really strong bot lane, right? We had like Vulcan and Sven, and like Licorice was playing weak side most of the times. And for example, there, like you have your identity, And I still remember like I was talking to Reaper, and he was like, "Bro, you're so good on these things that just move and like go around the map. Like I think you should look at what like Doinby does and whatever." And then that's when I studied Doinby for like, bro, I have spent so many hours studying on like how he moves around jungle, where he puts his wards, like what timers he moves, when does he TP, where does he TP, what champs he plays, how he plays them, like whatnot. And then that's when I was playing like Galio, Lissandra, and like all these
Rumble
like,
mid, I remember.
Supportive mids, yeah. And then my vision was like, I'm not gonna lane. I will just push and I will move and I will make sure Blabber can get whatever he wants on the map. If he wants his red, he will get the enemy red. If he wants like to dive bot, I will go and suicide and he can farm more camps. And that's kind of how you get an identity, right? And then think with time, I understood that kind of has its limit, I think. Because if people figure you out, then they just pick a really scaling mid, or like they pick like a Ziggs or like a Tristana, and then they just take your tower at like 8 minutes if you keep roaming. And I think that's what people try to do, for example, like as FPX. But the problem with FPX is like their team fighting was so insane that even if Doinb is down like 3k gold, he would always find an insane engage on enemy Orianna with no cleanse, and he would just win the fight like that. So then I had to like figure out how to play that and whatnot. But yeah, I think every team I'm in, usually I try to figure out what's the best for the team, because I feel like as mid laner, I feel like it's kind of the role that's the easiest to adapt to your team, rather than, for example, I think jungler, it's hard because if you're a Sedge and Maokai player, but your mid cannot really carry, it's not like you will play Lee Sin and Viego and like Lilia and like start carrying every game, right? It's like completely different. But I feel like on mid, you can switch your playstyle very fast if you do the study, if you have the understanding on how to win the game. And I think before I was focused on lane, but I feel like nowadays I'm just figuring out, okay, what's the best way of winning the game? And I think Faker, for example, is also one player that does go through that, right? Like when he plays Orianna, he doesn't have 12 CS.
So you think you're like Faker? You think you're like the Faker of like Europe? Is what I'm getting here?
I'm not. It's like Faker, for example, when he plays Orianna, he's not the Chovy that has like 13 CS a minute and 3 items at 20 minutes, or 25. He has like 2 items, but he's there on every objective fight. He doesn't die. He covers for his top laner, like when he gets dove, but Chovy wouldn't, for example. So I just think it's like a different way of playing, and I like both. I think this year, for example, in SK, I have 4 rookies on my team. I mean, Irrelevant's kind of a rookie, right? And my jungler is just really good at facilitating junglers like Sejuani, Maokai, Rel, like all these like tanky boys that just tank for you, and your carries just like 1v9 the fights. And then that's when I guess I became like more of the carry mid, which is something I tried to do in Mad, but didn't work because Yoya wanted to play like more of the carry style as well. And also we had Chasey that, I don't want to say he was bad on tanks, but he was better on carries than on tanks. So then I felt like I had to be, again, the guy that would facilitate to play like Nico, Lissandra, like push and move, dive top, play J stop, just dive top, ignore one mid wave. And yeah, I mean, for me, I just play whatever works for the team. And that's why sometimes I guess it looks really bad, because if you play facilitating mids, but your carries actually don't carry, then you just look like you're 3k down. Your top is 3k up, but everyone thinks your top is very good. But that's kind of because of the mid, So yeah, that's kind of my my vision.
Yeah, Yamato, I want to throw it to you here, because the downside of committing too hard on a style, I feel like, is the idea that you're going to limit your team. You lower your potential ceiling because you're committing on one thing, and that idea will only take you so far. So as a coach, like, how do you balance both, where you don't limit your ceiling, but you're still able to have enough of an identity that you can actually get to the places you want to go? You can get to Worlds, you can get to the further stages of the competition.
I think it's like, it depends on where you are in the season. It's like, how much of a leash do you really like have? Because sometimes you reach points where you need to tighten things up, because I think in order to like really get better, I think you need to break things down. And in that process, like, you are going to play worse. It's like sometimes breaking things down could be as far as just exposing players to new ideas, sometimes challenging them on their bullshit ideas and calling them out for what they are doing. And you need to just have the right time and a place. A good example is the year after 2021, 2022, is as a team, especially in summer, we were at the brink of not reaching playoffs ever. Like, we were like one game away always. So in terms of what we were doing in terms of the team was really, really stifled growth, but it was very risk averse. Like, we were a team that managed to make top 3, but we didn't improve for the time span of like the playoffs all the way into world because of how fragile the team was. It's like we did a lot of things that were disagreeable just because in that moment, for us to tear that everything down would leave us exposed to risk in the next match that we would have to play. So there was a lot of like players just doing their own thing in a way and players getting away with shit that I really, really disagreed with. But in that moment, you could just kind of, you're faced with the choice. It's like, do you risk to break shit down or do you just fucking move forward with what you have? Like you band-aid solve everything and you just play Lucian Nami and you just go all the way with the composition that makes sense. And sometimes you just have to like do a gut call. Like at that point, usually if you reach that point with a dynamic, you kind of know that at the end of the season, this team is not going to stick together, you know? And I think that's also part of the calculation. It's like, you're ready to risk a spring split to make sure that you're better later. But when you're pushing at the end of a season, you need to tighten things up and you need to just, you know, trust the individuals and what you've built so far, because you're not going to build Rome in a day. Like if you have a little cottage by then get inside and hide from the rain, you know, and hope that it works out for you.
What happens if you voiced a team that you have this vision and then they just like bench you after winter split, like hypothetically?
What does happen? You know, it's like sometimes you have this vision, you say winter split's gonna be tough, many variables, you don't even know what's gonna happen. You boot camped very little, all the other teams practice longer, you had the Red Bull event, and then you get 10th place in a split that doesn't matter, fuck all, and then you lose your job. That's life sometimes.
Jesus.
Should have tightened things up.
That is dark. I mean, one thing that I have to ask before we move on is, do you think that the format right now is making it so LEC teams have to commit to an identity earlier and it limits their growth throughout the season? Because the format feels really cutthroat. If you have a bad 3 weeks, you're just fucked, right? Like you're done for the entire split. So my question to both of you guys who have both competed in this format now is like, do you feel like the overall splits have been limiting teams' growth because of the like do or die nature of every moment?
I mean, for me, I think it depends on team to team. For example, I think for G2, it probably doesn't matter much because they're kind of better mechanically or they have a better like view or whatever, so they will win games anyways. But I feel like for the bottom teams or for like the teams that are new, that are not sure if they're good and like they lose half their scrims and whatnot, usually you do tend to just play one play style to secure playoffs. Like first goal is like, okay, we need to make playoffs. And how do you do that? Well, you play the same champions every game or the same style every day. And then if there's a meta where jungler becomes carry instead of tanks, then you don't really want to try that in the last 2 weeks, for example, right? And then when you see other teams, like Fnatic is at the top, G2 is at the top, and they only play like carry junglers, then you're like, okay, do we switch to carry junglers or do we try to actually just play our style? So I would say it does limit the performance, I would say, from teams to like scale very well, because I think in LPL, LCK, like they have a best of 3 every 3 or 4 days and whatnot. And in EU, you have 1 weekend. If you go 0-3, you're on the edge of not making playoffs. So like, I think it does make sense to change it because I actually hate this format. I feel like it's so bad. I think you see the same champions every game. Like if you're like 1-1 on your game 3 and there's like, I don't know, a zillion angled mid, or you can lock Azir or Corki. You would probably lock Azir or Corki, but if it's a best of 3 and you have 1 game to like waste or to try something, then you would do it. So I do feel like it limits teams, and I don't know if like it's the team's fault or if it's like the format's fault, or maybe there's a way around that, like you can maybe play 2 games a day of like trying new stuff and then 4 games a day playing your style, but then I feel like you kind of waste, like, I don't know, the balance is very hard, I would say. But for us, for example, I do think best of ones are not very good, especially when you have rookies. I feel like it's so hard because you don't know, maybe first game they choke, second game they think they played really bad, so they choke again. And then you have to worry about the draft, about their mental, and then you go to next week, you're 0-3, and then you have like a G2 Fnatic BDS week, you're like, oh, okay, what do we play this week? So yeah, I think I don't like the format at all for like the growth of the rookies, especially. I think for veterans, they don't care as much, but I think for the rookies, it's pretty bad, yeah.
No, I agree fully. I like the only thing that I guess I could add for people that like are watching is that like stage games are so incredibly important because you get exposure to like completion of games. It's like most of the time, it's like scrims are very early game focused. The data you get isn't as super accurate, and putting yourself on in stage games, you get to see the psychology of everything play out too. And you begin to see how the dynamic works on stage. Sometimes people shout, maybe people talk less, maybe people are nervous. It's like you get to see everything kind of play out, where it's truly like 5 against 5 in terms of like the human behind the game. And additionally, I think in terms of how the best of ones are scheduled, it's like it's, at least for me, I don't know how it is for you, Nisqy, I imagine the same. It's like to play one best of one is like a 6-hour commitment. And to do that over 3 days, it's like you have to drive, you have to wait, you have to meet before, you have to prepare draft. It's like it's such a big process to do one BO1. If it was like 3 BO1s in one day and you were done, I think no one would have like an issue with it, because at least you have the whole week. But 3 days are invested into BO1s, and you only get like 3 scrim days, and you need to like recover. People are tired. There's just too much of a time commitment to play a super week. I think just super weeks are complete ass. Just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, for me, like before, I would think of best of us like, okay, it's actually like a game day. Like I need to be on point. I will make sure to not eat like shit the day before. I'll make sure to come on time. I'll make sure to prepare myself mentally and whatever. And these days, I'm like, it's just another day. In the end, I play one best of one. So like I go office, I stream. Then I don't know, I have my anime moment. Then I go LEC. Then it's like, okay, I guess I have to play now. And it's not like, it's still like fun and like exciting, but I feel like it's not as exciting as like if it would be like a best of 3 or playoff game. So I'm like, okay, like I will try my best today, right? But I'm not like 100% like doing like, I don't know, meditation and whatever like before. I feel like you don't have much like time for that. It's like you spend 8 hours, you go 8 hours before in the office. You sit there for 4 hours watching games. You have to be there like 3 hours before. I don't know. It's for me, it's way too much of a hustle. And in the end, you just do. Usually, in the end, it's like whatever you practice in scrims or your form in scrims usually shows up on stage. And then one day maybe you talk less. One day maybe you're the superstar of the team. But I feel like it's so hard to find a balance in like how you actually want to treat these games, rather than I feel like if it was best of 3s, then everyone is coming in like 100% and everything is figured out, like draft and whatnot. So yeah.
Oh, for sure. We already covered the Fnatic portion, and I wanted to, like both of us wanted to cover the Mad Lions portion too.
Yep.
It was an interesting one. Mad Lions, I think by all accounts, like you guys were the second best team from Europe. I think people look back at the team as a messy one due to many pivotal moments that are very memorable. It was the whole Phoenix meme, Melioya exiting, you arguing and so forth. In terms of your memories and your experience in working in this team, what are the things that the community might have missed? How was it working in the day-to-day? And what are some of the issues you guys faced? Because there were days where you guys played awful, and some days when everything worked and you guys pieced it together.
Okay, so for me, I mean, when I joined Mad, I was very, very happy, first of all, because I was like, okay, I joined a roster. There's Armut, which I knew really well. There was Yoya, which was one of the best junglers, if not the best, in the LEC. And my bot lane was Karzi Hylissang. No, it was Karzi Kaiser.
It was Unforgiven.
Was it?
Originally, right?
It was, okay. Unforgiven Kaiser. So I was like, okay, rookie AD, Kaiser Yoya as like jungle support. And Armut top, I was like, okay, looks like a decent roster. Especially after they failed with Ricker, I was like, okay, I can probably fix this team, right? Because I feel like if you're one of the best junglers and you do top 8, there's something wrong in the makings. And I knew Mac very well before, so it was very like natural to join Mad for me. It was after my break of Fnatic. Then I mean, whenever I joined, I realized how like bad I was at like the game in like a macro point of view, because like Mac and Yoya were like pretty well like resourced, or like they knew the game very, very well compared to me, where I would just push, move. Mid game, I would not farm as much. I would not like put TP wards or like set up flanks and whatnot. So that process was really fun for me, and also the fact that we did feel like a family in Mad, I think for me was like very, very important, because I think the dynamic that Mac and Pat brings is unique. I think as a coaching staff, they really make you feel like a family, and like you go out, like you meet their girlfriends, their wives, like you just feel like it's like home, you know. And then we also had like a physio. I mean, it's Jake, right? He's like a performance coach, and he was doing like massages everywhere. Like he would tell us about like nutrition and whatnot. So for me, it was like a complete new world, and I feel like they took care of us like very, very well. And yeah, I think that's when we started winning, and then I got MVP and whatnot. So I was like, okay, this roster does look pretty good. Of course, we did have some problems, right? Like you is agreeing with Kaiser, and then I was like, oh no, not the jungle support again. But I was like, I will just do my best, you know. Like I can't fix it, so I will just do what I think is best. And I think back then, actually, me and Yoyo were probably one of the best mid jungles, I would say, in like the league. We were playing like Belvet Nico, Belvet Lissandra, and whatnot. And then it reminded me of Blabber, but Yoyo just had like way more experience. And yeah, I think, I mean, what else is there behind?
The Worlds was interesting that year.
Oh man, the World. We failed to make play-ins. But the problem is that in every single team, okay, I will talk about Mad first, but like in Mad, when we went international, everyone was stressed. Like, for me, the biggest one was like Yoya. I mean, not like that there's any problem or whatever, but like I feel like whenever we went international, he was so stressed. Like the pressure of like the fans or like who we play against was like insane. And then that made me realize something later that I can talk about. But like for me, when you go international, you have to make sure you stay as a pack, because like when you scrim BLG, you scrim T1, like you scrim these teams, and they just like they just fuck you so hard. You're even wondering like why am I at Worlds? And they first pick Nidalee, and the guy goes like 15-0 on his Nidalee, and then Ale first picks Fiora and goes like 15-0. Like Doinby blind picks Kog'Maw mid every game with no bans, and I'm like, is Kog'Maw OP or what? It's like you doubt yourself a lot, and I think the pressure gets to the EU players a lot. And I think that's actually one of the reasons of why EU, I think, is doing bad, or like the West in general is doing bad at Worlds, just because I think we respect the other players way too much. Like, for example, if there's a play or like a review, usually you use LPL or LCK VODs, but if you review FPX and you're playing same as like Doinby and Tian, but then you go international and you're playing against actually Doinby and Tian, then mentally I feel like there is that switch off where you're like, man, we learn from them, so they're probably better than us, right? And I feel like that sentiment does block a lot of EU players, or they're like, oh, I'm against Ruler, the best AD in like the world. Oh, like, how do I win lane against him, you know? Oh, he can play Zeri, he can play Kai'Sa, like, I don't know what to pick, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a big problem. And then, yeah, I mean, Worlds was very interesting in Mad, because if I'm not mistaken, like during Worlds, I think there was this Phoenix thing with like Ibai buying Mad or joining Mad or whatever. And I was hearing like rumors and whatever from like agents and like, I don't know, reporters. And I was like,
sorry, was this 2022 or 2023?
2023 is what he's talking. Yeah.
So this was 2023 Worlds, okay.
Yeah. Because 2022, I think, wait,
that was play-ins.
What? Oh, that was
the play-ins one, the EG.
No? Or not? Did we fail twice in play-ins?
No, last year you were in the main thing. It was BDS that played play-ins last year. BDS played play-ins. They ended up beating the like PCS team, I think, PSG, and then they ended up making
twice, but only once with you. They failed.
They failed in 2020, but you only failed once, bro. Like,
okay,
we'll get all the international failures. Just we organize them all, and then we'll discuss them all individually.
So like Wars with Matt was very weird, because I felt like something was off. Like I felt like Yoya was getting way more distant. The group was more like 4-1. Like, I don't know, my management was talking to me like, oh, like there might be changes, like whatever, like during like Worlds, and I'm asking like, yo, like what's going on? You know, am I getting benched? Like I have to know, because like off season is going on. And I hate doing like off season or talking to teams when you're at Worlds, but in the end, like if everyone's doing their team now, you might miss like a Fnatic ship or like a BDS ship or like a C9 ship, right? So it's important that like you're focused on Worlds, but at the same time you have to figure out your future. And I think that's kind of what fucked us, I would say, because I feel like Yoya had like all the info, because they knew they would be in with Ibai, right? And I think most of the team knew, but we had no clue of like, or we're getting benched. Is it the same roster? Like, what's going on? And we're all saying like, there is no way they change Mac and Pad because they've been there for like so long. They have, I don't know, that great like coaching system, and it aligns with everything like Mad believes in and whatever. Like Mac was kind of the face of Mad. And yeah, and then they were like, towards the end, it's like, once we finished our last game at Worlds, it's like, yeah, we're switching everything. Like everyone is gone. And I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean I'm gone? Like the off season started now and I'm already gone. And then like that's when they said like, okay, eBay will come in and like they will do a Spanish thing. And then Mac and Pad were very shocked as well because they had no clue of like what's going on. And yeah, I mean that was for me the moment where I feel like the whole team distanced themselves from Yoya, because I feel like Yoya had all the clues, but no one else did. And I feel like that's so like unfair and weird in a team where one guy knows everything and the all force doesn't, but you're still a team in the end. Like I feel like that there should have been some kind of conversation, you know. Because I wouldn't mind if you told me, yeah, man is doing a new roster next year, like everyone's gonna accept me, like let's just try our best, whatever. But it felt more like everyone got stabbed in the back, kinda, because like it was the only one knowing, but no one knew. And I think that's when everyone just like Yoya was kind of alone, and then everyone was doing them like things themselves. Like even we went to dinners after, and I think Yoya was not even there. So it was very, very weird dynamic at the end of Worlds. Yeah.
That's imaginable. I think from outside too, when we saw like those phoenixes being spammed, it was kind of strange, you know. It's kind of strange. It's like you deserve transparency. It's kind of weird. Like it's so common in esports where you kind of get just dragged along as a backup plan. Because I remember the rumor back then was that eBay and Elioya, they wanted to build that squad, and there was like I think 3 options teams in Europe that were kind of competing for this idea of rebuilding that phoenix rising from the ashes, so to speak. I wanted to ask because there was a lot of tension always. Like at least in terms of how you fought against the Spanish community, I fought against the Spanish community too. Like Ibai flamed me on Twitter. I don't even know why. Bro is hosting events with Messi. Like, what the fuck are you tweeting at me, man? You have no fucking free time, bro. He's on the toilet tweeting at me. I wanted to ask because you mentioned already at Worlds the situation was strange. There was also like the whole thing at MSI where like you were laughing, and then there was the beef, and then of course there was
you were displaying your loser mentality. That's what it is.
There was the damn snippet where you tell Elioya pretty much to calm down when he's like raising his voice and being very emotional, and you're saying that what he's doing is not good. In regards to how the team dynamic was from your side, like everything was so exaggerated from like the Spanish side in terms of your relationship with Elioya and how the team was before that point when the Phoenix thing started. How was it in your experience? Did you feel that tension? Did you feel that pressure from the Spanish community, and how the French and the Spanish fought against each other in the so-called Twitter war?
I mean, my relation was really good with you. To be fair, we had like no problems. Like it was actually very good. Like we even went out on like our off days. We played like paddle. Like I don't know, we did like a lot of shit together. Because I felt like we were kind of the core of like the mid jungle, or like the way Matt was playing back then. And I really like you as a person, right? But then MSI happened, and that's when like I made the tweet on the caster that said I shouldn't smile and whatever. And then like I had that shit when the team was already like going to shit as well. Then I had talks with like Riot, with like Mad management, and like like a lot of shit basically, like during MSI. And then my mindset was like, France is against Spain, so whenever Yoya plays bad, France flames Yoya. Whenever I play bad, Spain flames me. And whenever one of us like carries, like let's say Yoya carries, then all the French people would say, oh, Yoya is shit, Nisqy is carrying him, like did you see what he did, blah blah. And when I would carry, everyone of Spain would say, oh my god, like this mid has 3k gold and he makes a mistake in this, like how is it possible, blah blah blah. So that I found sad, because I feel like if they would unite it would be so much nicer. Like, why can't we both play good? Like, why doesn't that exist? Because I think me and you both thought that we're pretty good together, and like I feel like the community thought we hated each other for whatever reason. But then after MSI is when, after MSI is when I was kind of like disappointed. But maybe it's just like personally, maybe I'm just built different. But for me, when a caster, which is like a friend of yours, I'm gonna use Kameto example. Like, let's say Kameto flames the shit out of Yoya, or a guy that Kameto is like casting with flames the shit out of Yoya, and then a caster friend like Trayton makes a tweet about Yoya. My first thing would be to check on Yoya and to be like, yo, like, do not like answer, or like these guys are like stupid, or I would defend them on Twitter and whatever. Because like in the end, you're a team, and like if you want to go far, number one, your team has to feel good. Like if my jungle feels like shit, or if my mid feels bad, or if he doesn't have confidence in himself and whatever, or if he has problems and whatnot, I'll make sure that he's good, because you want to win. And if you want to win, all 5 players have to be good. So that I was sad of, because like I feel like he didn't do much. Like I feel like he just let it be. And I'm not the type of guy being like, oh man, like, come on, like you should have defended me, you know? But I feel like it would be the opposite, where if they flamed him, then I would do it for him, because I'm more like hard-kinded, I guess, or whatever. Like I'm less selfish in some ways. And that's when it started going like down. It was like, okay, pretty weird. I thought we were like good buddies and whatnot. And then the summer split was like, I knew I would be gone at the end of the year, because I was, okay, I will not play with Yoya again. Like that's for sure, you know, I was like, I cannot, because of my like morals and whatnot. And then, yeah, I felt like then it was even worse, you know, then like Spanish people would flame me again, and they would hate me like for so long. And it was always like my fan base against Yoya fan base. But back then we were still fine, because like I was disappointed, but I didn't just tell him like, yo man, like why did you not defend me? You know, I still thought of like, I want to make Worlds, so like I would not make a big deal of it, whatever, you know, it's just social media. And yeah, I mean, in the end, I knew we would like separate, like we would go separate ways. So I was like, I'll try my best. And in the end, we made Worlds. So guess I did fine. But now Spanish people love me, so it's fine.
Yeah, because you ended up beating a team and getting Mad Lions in. So nice.
Yeah, so now they love me. So all good.
It sounded like you guys had an opportunity to like unite the East and the West Coast and like come up on stage holding hands, you know, like
yeah. Biggie and Tupac, bro.
Like, uniting everything, the Spanish and the French fans. I wanted to bring up because you mentioned a lot of the world's and your international performance. Like that's like one of the main point of criticism in terms of what your career is. I think a lot of things, of course, are circumstantial. Like we had our run, and I was like, unfortunate what the fuck happened. And then it's like, for example, 2019, you're in a group with G2 and fucking Griffin, like it's just fucking demons, right? And and then there's like the whole situation that Mad, in terms of what you brought up, in terms of your experience internationally, and also carrying that over to a potential World Run this year. What are some of your takeaways? Where is your mindset at in terms of your international performance and your own gameplay when it comes to playing internationally?
Okay, so last year at Worlds, I actually thought I played way better than what I used to play. I feel like I would always choke, or I would doubt myself. I would not go for plays. I would go in EU. I would have low confidence. I would mental boom and whatever. And I actually feel like last Worlds, I was good mentally. I was doing my thing. I was spamming solo queue. I had my meta. I didn't care what people played. I wasn't copying others. And I feel like in the past years, I would like, if like as I said, like if Doembe is playing lots of Kog'Maw mid, I would go in solo queue and try Kog'Maw mid. But then this Worlds, I didn't care. Like I played my Lissandra, I played my little Sylas. And for me, what's happened the most is like, before I would kind of think that maybe enemies were better just because they have like great names. Like, I don't know, there's a Shy on the enemy, or like a Shahu and whatever. And like, ironically, for example, when we played Shahu, I was stuck into Pad because he made like so many presentations of how Shahu does this, Shahu does that. And then I would learn from him. And then I was like, okay, I will show you that today I'm better than Shahu. And then that's when we played RNG, I think it was, or I don't remember what team he was. Weibo, I
Weibo.
believe it was. Yeah.
Yep.
And then that's when I believe I played Silas, I think, and I had like.
Yep. You were like
Bro,
9-0.
I feel like I had him so calculated in everything he did just because I analyzed him like so much, and I feel like I was in the zone. But then sadly, enemy team still had like the shy and like other players. It's not all about mid. And I was like, okay, like I was kind of like proud because like I never had like a good game at the international events, but I feel like that game did show me that like I can compete with the best and like I can be the best. It's just a matter of actually being good as a team now rather than being not like selfish, but like my performance doesn't matter as much if the team doesn't do very well. Like if I cannot carry when I'm 9-0, that's as much my fault as my team's fault, right? And I think that's why now, like if I would go to Worlds, then I would really share my perspective with my team because it's always that first year when you were rookies, they scrim whatever Asian team, they get fucked, and then they think they're bad, then they try to copy what they do, they like their mentality switches and whatnot. And I think I have the experience of like sharing, I guess, what I experienced, and I hope that it will do well to SK if we make it to Worlds, hopefully this year. And yeah, for me, I just want to perform well again because I think I can do it. And now that I'm like the center of the project, if the team plays bad, that would be on me. So like I feel like I carry on more weight on my shoulders, kinda, of like shot calling mid game, picking up good fights, talking about draft, like making sure everyone is like feeling good, everyone's confident, there is no mental booms in the team, everyone plays enough solo queue, everyone's disciplined and whatnot. And yeah, I think hopefully we'll make it, and I hope we can show everyone that we can do well there.
No, it's so refreshing to hear you talk about these topics because it's like from on my end, it's like I work with you. It was 2021, and I remember back then it's like I worked with Nisqy. I thought you were one of the best people to hang out with. We always had fucking fun. I remember there was these moments that always drove me insane. I was like, oh, Nisqy is still immature. I remember you come from Starbucks, you tell me, oh, the Starbucks, she made my coffee wrong. Today's gonna be a great day.
By the way. Like my philosophy back then, it was like I was getting Starbucks every day, and if she fucked up my coffee, I knew I would run it down in scrims. But now I learned, okay?
Oh,
man. Like the thing is, if I believed back then, Yamato, that's your fault. That's your fault, okay? Because if I say if my coffee is shit, I will have a shit day of scrims.
Then make a better coffee.
Yeah, then you should know. Then you should have told me like, yeah, but if you think this way, then you'll probably play bad, and then you will actually believe it's the coffee's fault. You should have changed my mentality when I was a rookie.
Bro, I remember telling you, Nisqy, what if we are playing World Finals and you're going up on stage and you look me in the eye and say, Yamato, my coffee was shit today. Well, fuck then. Like, these things outside of our control is not good. But the reason I brought this up, right? Because I remember like those things stick out to me, like those funny moments. Like for example, back then I remember as I asked you, it's like, what do we like, NA or EU more? It's like NA is more chill. I was like, more chill. More chill as a metric. And now to hear you speak and the role that you needed, of course, to take with the squad that you currently have, it's nice to have to see that matureness, really, really visualized, and just to really, really hammer home the point, because you've talked about it plenty in terms of, like, I remember there were moments where you also wrestled with the ideas like of playing that carry style. Like currently we have like the Tristana meta and so forth. And it's very refreshing to hear you say that you've come to terms with what is the best version of yourself. Do you feel at this point in time that you're truly, truly a veteran? And what was the big turning point for you, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe right now I'm a pretty complete player, I would say in general. I mean, it did take a lot of time, but I think that's like everyone goes through that, right? I think for me, the turning point was believing in the fact that I could play the carries, because I tried in Mad, didn't work. Tried in C9, didn't work. Tried in Fnatic, didn't work. I think even Splice I was trying didn't necessarily work. Then I was like, okay, like what am I actually doing bad? Like there must be something that I'm doing wrong, right? And I think even this year in the off season, when I was talking to Swiffer, which is the SK coach, I was like, next year I have to be able to carry games from mid. Like that's one of my goals, and like I have to reach that. And he was telling me, okay, I mean, I saw you play Azir and I saw you play those two. Like you're not bad mechanically on it. I was like, yeah, I mean, I know, but I'm losing games still, you know. And that's also why I think SK kind of went for like Isma, because he was a rookie, and I didn't want to run into the same thing where I would play the supportive mid for my jungler again. Especially as a veteran, I think it's way easier to lead when you're actually the carry of the team, because you just see way more and you know how to play the fights way easier, and you also not rely less on your mates, but like they can rely way more on you. Like they know you can carry the game. And for me, I figured it was more like a mental thing where I feel like I had the same mental when I was playing Nico, Lissandra, Galio, then when I was playing Azir or Orianna. Like if my jungler wanted to invade, it would be so hard for me to tell him like, shut the fuck up, like I'm freezing mid, like I don't care, I'm not gonna move. And I feel like nowadays, for example, if Isma wants to invade when I'm freezing mid on Azir, then I'll tell him, yo, you're not invading, like go farm your camps, you know? And I think that was hard for me, like saying no, I guess, to like my mates, or like if we can dive top and I'm playing Orianna, before I would just go there and lose like a wave and the plate on mid. And I feel like now I know kind of what I have to do with my champ to like win the game. And I think also the fact that when you play these mages, you cannot really die, because if you are going down on gold, then you become useless very fast. So like my laning had to become better, my mentality, like my mental state. Like if your team is running it down, you can still carry if you play really well. So I think those things made me, I guess, the carry that I am today. And I also watched like a lot of Chovy. I watched like a lot of Faker. I watched like lots of mids to see what they do different on each champ, to like actually understand how I want to play as carries. For example, if Faker plays Azir, he always goes for the carry with his flash, no matter what, because he knows if he traces life, then he probably win the fight, for example. And for example, Chovy wouldn't do that. He would play like just front to back, no risk, like just do as much DPS as you can. So I think I found myself in a good balance. And I think the thing that really changed me is like, I feel like now I don't really see just how my champ can win, or like how I can win, but I feel like as a team, like if I have like a Jarvan, then I will try to communicate to my jungler that like I think he should ult this guy so that he flashes, and then I can flash on him next fight and whatnot, which is something I wasn't doing before. And I think when you play control mage, is something you have to do that's very important. Like trade flash with enemy mid, make sure you tank hooks for me, like I don't know, lots of little details. And I think right now I'm doing them well, and I'm happy that I can play carries because I've been trying for a long time. And also I think it's also thanks to Isma, because he doesn't care what he plays. Like he just plays tanks, and I just play whatever I want. So I'm glad that my jungler is not like, oh, I want to play like Viego and Lee Sin only. So you have to play Lissandra or Nico.
Yep.
So yeah.
So Yamato, I think we're the ones that are in the wrong. It's actually Nisqy's fault. The whole time on our streams, we've been saying, why does Isma never pick Brand, bro? Why does he never pick Brand? Like, like he should just pick Brand, Zyra. These champions are fucking OP. We're so LPL pilled. We're watching LPL in the mornings, and we're watching like these insane, like Tarzan Brand, like Croco Brand. These guys just go off completely.
But
we're
Dom,
like,
you
oh,
have
like
to stop, okay? Like LPL
okay, why?
and LEC is not the same. Bro, it's like
Okay.
It's like if you have an LPL team, everyone plays forward, everyone plays for their lane, and no one gives a fuck about the first Drake, the fucking like anything, like their lane state. Like Knight will just give up 2 waves and go dive somewhere. Like they don't calculate, they just go and they see and they just fight. And there's like 20 kills at 5 minutes, at 10 minutes. But LEC is more like controlled, I think, or they try to be more controlled. And I think to play the
all right, we're gonna have to go into this. We're gonna have to go into this heavy because like
to play the Brand, the Lilia, and whatever. I think you need to be insane at your synergy. For example, like if your jungler support synergy is not like the best, you cannot play the Brand or not Nidalee or whatever. And I think in LPL it works very well because they all see the game the same way. And when they see, I don't know, Alistar use W, then Leona ult's already going, MF ult's already going, Brand is already like flashing in, like it just goes way quicker, and I think it's higher execution, but of course, it is really good champs if you can play them well, right?
Yeah.
You lost us for a moment and then you brought us back. Honestly, the first part was very disagreeable. The second part, you got me back in.
I mean, I kind of agree. I just feel like at some point, I feel like when I watch Western teams, it feels like they overcomplicate the game almost. Like when I'm watching this, look, I don't know if you saw my rant, Nisqy. Did you see my rant on G2 Fnatic?
No.
If you haven't, okay. All right, so we're going to bring in some context here. So I watched G2 Fnatic. I just lost it for like 10 minutes. I blacked out and I started just like screaming random like shit that just came into my mind and just problems that I had. I feel like in some way, LEC is like overcomplicating the game because like, sure, like there are like a lot of intricacies, but when I see like Brand Leona in LPL and they just see anyone on their screen and the Leona just goes and then the Brand just one-shots the guy, I'm like, is that not just easy to do if you have a champion that just clears faster, you're there first, you have the vision, and then anyone walks into your screen, you just one-shot the guy. Like, why is that so hard? Why is it such like a disconnect between like, oh, this is achievable, but you know, it's too hard, so we're just gonna play like Maokai Sedge, this type of stuff.
I mean, for me, at least in the past years, I've been in EU. I think in Korea and China, everyone can play every champ, or at least they pick it. Like even if Milky Way cannot play, I don't know, fucking Zinzao,
Sejuani
or Sejuani, the guy would literally first time or like have 3 games in Solo and play Sejuani. Because I mean, I'm not sure if I'm like wrong on this or not, but I feel like their philosophy doesn't change with the champions they play. Like, if they play Brand or Lee Sin or Nidalee or like Sedge, or like if they play a tank or a carry, I feel like they play similar. Like when I see Tian on his Ivan, like perma ganking or like he's just like solo killing some people and whatever. I feel like the way they play is just very aggressive, and it doesn't matter what champs they play. And when it's like the aggressive champs, it works way better. And also in EU, not everyone can play all the champs. Like in a team, sometimes you have your jungler or like your mid. Let's say your mid cannot play Lucian or he's bad on Lucian.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Dust Camille. You don't have to go any further. We're completely with you, bro. We saw the Q max into W max Dust Camille. So yeah,
like,
we're right there with you. Continue.
Like there is people that are like one style. Like for example, I don't think Humanoid, for example, is a completed player, right? I think he's very, really good on mages, but he has a good Lucian. But then if tomorrow meta is like, I don't know what, like tank mids, like Ornn mid, Sion mid, and like Maokai mid, I don't think I would see Humanoid play Maokai and Sejuani mid, you know? They will just play their own style. Because compared to LCK and LPL, where they play whatever the meta is, like whatever they believe is strongest, they pick, and they don't care how good they are at it. In EU, you value more comfort and what you can do with a champ rather than the optimal comp. At least that's the way I see it. And I think that's why also when you go internationally, the drafts do look way harder. Because enemy team plays everything. And if your jungler doesn't play Poppy and enemy team locks in Arivi and you cannot play Poppy, then that's a problem, you know? And yeah.
I think also, I don't know, because we talked about the format too, right? I think an advantage that LPL has in terms of how they work, I feel like LEC kind of works backwards. Rather than trying and failing, they are failing and then seeing what they could have tried. And I think the other way around, you learn so much faster because you're actively taking fights and you are kind of more in sync. It's like kind of like imagine you're a martial arts fighters and you're just like putting yourself in rounds and you're in rounds. Maybe you get beaten, maybe you get KO'd, but you gain some kind of experience. You get a feel for it. And I feel like that's such such an important detail, because always like what's common in the LEC, the first initial games, like there's a certain level of stiffness that leaves you with a lack of experience in like active fights. Because with what you said, I connected so much with how Bo works. Because Bo was working the other way around. Like he wanted to take fights. It's like he could see like a 2v4 angle. Maybe it's like 50-50, maybe he loses, maybe something was wrong. But he would rather take it because it would move us in the right direction of finding like unity. Because it's better to try than to not try and then see, oh, we could have tried. And I think like there's players that works like this, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's why like the bow for me in EU, I think is very difficult because in EU, when you lock Maokai, everyone thinks of Maokai as like full clear jungler, get level 6, then fight an ult and whatever, and you play, or Vi, or whatever, like slow. But like, I feel like Chinese and LCK junglers, bro, when they play Vi, the guy can invade level 3, or like he will dive you, or like the guy will play Karthus and invade you level 2, you know? Or he will play Maokai and just like go and fight you like 1v1 in your jungle. And I think that's where the disconnect is for me, and like why Bo cannot succeed, but hasn't succeeded in EU. And also, all 5 players have to be on the same page. If you see one guy, you go. If you have the right information, you go. And yeah, that's why I'm kind of feeling sad for Bo, because I think he's a really good player, but it is very hard for me. I feel like it's very hard for EU to figure out how to make Bo work, which usually, if all 4 players have to adapt to a jungler, it's hard. But I mean, we've seen it a couple of times. I think, for example, Milky Way is a good player where I think he only plays carries or mostly carries.
Last split specifically.
So like I think Blabber was like that in the past, like in C9. Like if the guy goes in, you have to follow him, or else he looks like an inter. And like Healy is the same, right, on support. Like if he goes in and you don't go in, he will just die alone. But if you go, you might win the fight. And I think Bo is for me is the same. And yeah.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you about this Bo topic is, for a while, people in the community were always bringing up that you should be the one that plays with Bo, that you would be the Bo Whisperer, because every jungler, like you were always the jungle whisperer, right? Like every jungler looked better with you than they looked without you. So was there ever like an idea? Did you ever like have this idea where you're like, oh man, I could fix this guy? Or if the mid knew how to play with a guy like Bo, he would be able to win. Did you ever really want to play with Bo, or was that never on the table?
I mean, I would say every off season, because we also share the same like agent. I do talk to him and I'm asking like, yo, what's Bo doing next year? And I think it's been let me think. When was Bo in EU? Like 2 years ago, maybe 3?
Yeah, last year.
2.5 years ago, pretty much. He came and then he played solo queue in that first year, and then he joined Vitality.
Yeah, like for me, I've played with Bo in like how do you even call it? Like, not scrims, like Champions Queue. Mm-hmm. And I could see the difference that he was playing compared to any other jungler that I was playing with. Like, the guy is so aggressive, and he sees like, I don't know, like he sees one guy with Graves and he just flashes on him. And if the guy doesn't insta flash, he's just dead, for example. Or like he sees angles that I see, but not like 100%. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, playing with him would be nice. The only problem I have with him is I feel like his English is not very good yet, I think, still. And I feel like as mid jungle, if you cannot communicate very well, it can be hard, especially if you play this high pressure style. Like if you play like Graves Rise or Graves Galio and whatever. But yeah, I mean, every off season, I usually ask my agent, like, "Go, what's Bo doing? Like, is there a possibility of like joining whatever team and whatnot?" Because I do want to see what there would be, like if I would play with him. Even though lots of people think he's bad, I think he's one of the best in EU if you play well with him. And that's also when I would go back to my original style of like supporting mid, but that time it would be for like a Chinese jungler. So yeah, I think it could be pretty interesting to see how it works out. And if it would fail, then I guess Bo is just boosted. Yeah.
Look, I'm still on the side. I'm holding out. I blame Europe as a continent over Bo. I am blaming Europe for the failures of Bo. I'm not blaming Bo. So that's where I'm at with everything.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different things I wanted to ask you. First thing I guess we'll talk about is the level in Europe right now, because we've just talked about like LPL and LCK and how it's different than EU. And the common sentiment is that LEC is bad right now. Yamato and I are like saying this is the worst that LEC's ever been. We both are permaflaming the region. We watched the G2 Fnatic finals. I couldn't stomach it watching all the throws. Like it seemed like so insane to me that a team could be that ahead and lose consistently. So where do you stand on it? Because obviously when you came to EU, you thought that there was a big difference, that EU was a lot better than NA. Where do you see EU right now? Do you think this region is better than people say, or is it just like a really bad period for Europe right now?
I think the final, I think it's again like recency bias a bit, I would say, because I do think the final, I actually think Fnatic played well until they didn't. Like, I mean, if you're 10k up every game at like 25 minutes, it must mean you're doing a lot of stuff that's correct, right? And in my opinion, Fnatic and G2 have the best like mid game in the region for sure. Like they find these openings, they find the TP wars behind. Like I think Niqy and June are really, really good with vision. Like I actually think they're probably on like near where like LCK and LPL supports are, like vision wise. I think that's something that they improved EU, because if you play against G2 or Fnatic and your support doesn't understand tempo well, or he doesn't play the right wars, or he doesn't sweep properly, then enemy team has so big of an edge. So I would say the level is not that bad in my opinion. I do think the team fights with the way it's being played are way worse than LCK LPL. Like sometimes, I mean, I think like for example, Ezreal in EU, I mean even myself, feel like doesn't work very well, for example, compared to like LCK and LPL where, I don't know, they hit every Q and they dodge every skull shot with their E. But in EU, you had like I think twice in finals, for example, Noah had like incidents, right? When it's like 3k up. So I feel like team fights
like 4 times, but yeah, we could say twice.
Team fights wise, we're for sure behind. I think laning phase wise, it's actually improving. Maybe not top. I think top is so weird in EU. Like sometimes one guy stomps and then the other guy picks their matchup and then he stomps. But I think bot laners and mids, I feel like laning wise should be fine internationally. And I think mid game wise, G2 and Fnatic for sure would be fine. If not good, actually. Like we saw G2 at MSI or at the World Cup and whatnot. I think they look really well in the way they play mid game and also in the way they play from behind. I think lots of teams can learn from how G2 comebacks from like 10k gold against Fnatic, or how do they always win, or do they get even in like a 50-minute game. So I actually think the level in EU is pretty good, at least macro wise. But I would say mechanics and team fights wise, I think it's below LCK and LPL.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like compared to like other splits of Europe, do you feel like there's like this split feels less competitive, or it doesn't feel as strong as previous splits? Like if you're just looking at Europe compared to Europe.
I mean, usually you have two teams that are very good. And the problem of this split is that G2 was, I don't know what they were doing really. Like they were not the top team that they used to be. And I think it would be a completely different view of EU if G2 was just stomping every game. They were 9-0. And then imagine right behind you have SK with 8-1, and then you have Fnatic at like 7 wins. Then you would probably think EU is good, because like the top 3 teams are doing really well. But I feel like with G2's downfall, the region does look shit, because also everyone thinks that like EU is like a one-man team. And if that team is bad, then like, and they still win, then the region is kind of doomed, which I can agree on. I think if you're Fnatic and you lose 3 games with a 10k gold lead, the region is kind of doomed. Like, but I think everyone will kind of pick up their slack, and I really hope during the season finals that EU can show what they are capable of, because I think if you don't play well now at season finals, then I think Worlds will be very rough, especially because there's no like boot camp in Korea or China and whatever, it's in EU. So I doubt teams will change that much the way they play and whatnot. So I think, season finals are going to be very important. And I think the teams that play good or show themselves good, then I think they have a chance. And the team that just like crumble in there, like the third spot at Worlds, like being like 3-2 and playing bad, I think they would probably get smashed,
So the second question that I had for you, this is from before when you were talking about the international situation where like you felt like you weren't playing that well internationally, but like domestically, I mean, you were just having like insane splits. Do you think that international performance is kind of like overvalued when it comes to roster creation within EU? Because for me, you know, you see a lot of these teams go internationally, they only play a couple games, you know, maybe you see 6 best of ones before, and now you might see even less than that. And it seems like for you specifically, you've suffered from those games being the last ones of the season, and people forgetting how dominant you were, for example, in your MVP split, or, when you had that run in 2021 with Fnatic, or how you played last year with Mad Lions. So do you feel like there is like this bias towards international in EU? Because it seems like realistically, not that many people are playing well internationally. So I wonder if that affects the roster creations and the strength of the region.
I don't think it affects the like roster creations, but I do think there's like a weird view from from the public perspective, and even from like the GMs in EU and whatever. Because like, let's say I make it to Worlds, and I go 0-6 in like groups after being second in EU, and then let's say you have like Larsen, which is like 6th place, hasn't played Worlds. Every GM in EU believes that Larsen is better than me. Like that to me is like, it's crazy, because they think because you go internationally and you play bad, well, now you are just worse than the 6th best mid in EU. Like literally, it's like,
yeah,
I cannot understand this thing where like, if 3 teams go to Worlds, these 3 players are the top 3 players in EU. No matter what, if they go 0-10 in all the games, if they smurf and then they lose, like it doesn't matter. It's like these 3 players deserve it, and they deserve to be on a top 3 roster. And I feel like that's not the GM's perspective, that's not the public's perspective, because in Mad, when we go as 4th seed and we fail to make it into play-ins, I mean, of course we're dog shit, but the 5th or 6th team in LEC will not survive like 20 minutes against this other team if we beat them this easy in EU, right? And I feel like that's something people don't understand. Like, if you go internationally, it's way harder. Of course it is. Like, players are just way better. And if you fail, like, it happens, like everyone wants to win, but if you fail at international or worlds, doesn't mean you're just suddenly the top 8 mid laner or ADC in EU,
Yeah. So do you think you'll just try not to go to Worlds this year just so that you can increase your value?
Yeah, I think this year I will not go. I will just let BDS go, and then maybe I get picked up by BDS next year. So yeah,
it makes sense. That's a good. That's a good mentality. That's what I like.
I was gonna be like, if you only had me in mid.
Yeah, no, exactly. We always have this meme. We do it like a lot of the live views, and when there's those like really dirty LEC games, like I know the ones where it's like it feels like everyone's into it because one mistake happens like after the other, and because people are losing flashes and dying at random times, it's like you can never get a solid like 5v5. We always have this meme on the live views where we're saying all 10 players are losing value by playing this game. Like the fact that they're playing this game is hurting everyone's like potential salary, job offers, everything like that. So. Yeah, just you gain value by not playing. Perks was saying the same thing, that his value is increasing right now by not playing in Heretics. So, we'll see what happens with that. Yamato, I know you had something that you wanted to go on, so go ahead.
No, I'm just curious, Nisqy, now, because we talk about Worlds, right? SK, you guys want to qualify. You guys destroyed the regular split, and I feel like the best of threes, at least from an outside perspective, to kind of remind you, at least they reminded me of some of the mid-game vows that have been a part of the SK issue the entire year, I would say. I'm curious now, moving into the best of fives, you guys are starting in the lower bracket. You guys need to hit the ground running. From a person that looks from the outside, what kind of expectations can I set on what you guys are working on? What are the big weaknesses that you have recognized in your regular split best of threes in summer?
I think we had that thing where, usually when you bring in 2 new players, that, for example, don't talk much and understand English, but not the specifics of it, right? I think it does create some things in mid-game where I see a player call for it and maybe they understand like 70% of it, and then they don't understand that we want a TP behind or whatever. And I think jungle support synergy for me is one of the most important synergies in the game, if not the most. And one split for you to work on that when you have teams like G2, Fnatic, BDS that have been doing that for at least 2 years together, I feel like does put you like below the other teams in the mid-game tempo of like how the game works. But I am very lucky that my bot lane does play very well in 2v2. Like my AD actually has hands. He can, I feel like he carries if he's fed, right?
Okay.
Shit at anyone, sorry.
All right. Extra kick getting flamed, bro.
It just came out like that, okay?
The two
Alright,
guys' names
that's the type-
kick, you know, it's like you use your hands, not your feet, you know. It's,
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah, X
Yeah, but,
Punch
like,
is gonna be the,
that's what I meant.
the next player.
And I think what we liked the most was like, for example, like the Israel game against like KC, right? I mean, I knew it would happen, but I'm just stupid for not picking something else. But like, I feel like we had a wrong read, kind of like. I mean, I don't want to blame it on meta, but like I feel like even my read was off because like in scrims when you play Ezreal into Lucian, one of you is 0-10 and one of you is 10-0. But then I go on stage, I hit my 2 item spikes, and usually in scrims, when I hit my 2 item spikes, enemy jungler has 1 item. And then now I go on stage, I don't deal any damage. And I'm like, yo, like what's going on? You know, like I have my 3rd item soon, and then I see like enemy jungler with 3 items running around. So I feel like the meta of scrims, I feel like we didn't analyze it well enough, and like how to actually play it if we are actually just even in a game. Like, is it actually working if you're even in a game? I think that was a problem, and I would say also I think our mid game, especially against Fnatic, was really hard to play because I do think they have a really well mid game. As I said, I think their mid jungle synergy is insane. Like they play very fast, they put vision, they base, I feel like you're always under pressure, which is something we learned from G2 and Fnatic. And for me, most important was like after losing to Fnatic, I realized again, I mean, I kind of knew that like if usually I fall behind, it is very rough to play mid game because I'm kind of not the only one speaking, but like usually I lead. So it was important for me to kind of go even or be ahead, or else I feel like the game would be harder to win. But I mean, it does make sense, right? I'm kind of the only veteran in the team, so I kind of have to lead the others in like what we play for and whatnot. And then against KC, I think it was very, very close. As I said, I think we just had a kind of a off meta read, I would say. And I'm sure if we play another best of 3 now, we would probably win because we know kind of what we want from our drafts going forward. But yeah, I think in general, just our mid game and our meta read and our mid game, I think is something I want to look at. And we were working on it already. Plus, I think what you can expect, I think for sure we're going to be one of the 2 teams that will fight for the last spot at Worlds, for sure. Because the way it is in the bracket, if G2 beats Mad, we play Mad. And then after that, we play BDS. If BDS loses to Fnatic, we play BDS or Giants. And for me, it is very doable. It will depend on how we are on the day, right? Because I've seen it many times where a team is favorite going into playoffs and then they just have a shit day or someone had a bad coffee and then they play bad. And then they don't go to World.
Nice.
All right, bad coffee.
So for me, yeah, I think we'll make it to Worlds. I'm very confident in it. I do think I'm still top 3 EU mid. And yeah, I just want to show it. And it would be great to bring SK to Worlds because they haven't done it in such a long time. And so for Rahel, Luon, Isma in like their first split to go to Worlds would be a crazy achievement. So I'm working towards that with them and as a team. And I'm making sure right now, for example, I had like some talks of like, guys, there's only 2 weeks left. Don't fuck around. Like, don't play random shit in solo queue. Like, just go and do your thing. Like, don't waste time playing, I don't know, other games, even though I do. But I'm the veteran, so I'm allowed.
Okay. All right.
Like, for example, don't play like random shit in scrims. Make sure to actually take feedback. Try to actually improve on your weaknesses because in 2 weeks, if you lose, you will regret that you didn't put on 10 more games on Leona, 10 more games on Brand or whatever. And yeah, I'm just working with everyone on trying to make sure they're at their top form with the coaching staff as well. Because, I mean, as I said, I think when you have 4 rookies, you kind of have to take like care of them in some ways because sometimes they're just there, you know, they just play like solo queue and like my top lane is playing like Smolder and whatever. And I think it's just important to like make them understand how important this best of is for like their career and our team, right? Because if we win and we go to Worlds, there's a high chance we'll probably be playing again together. But if we lose, then there's probably a high chance that we change something in the roster. So, yeah.
Okay, I like this. I like this new the mature Nisqy, the veteran Nisqy.
I don't know who this guy is anymore.
Right,
Like when
right.
I knew Nisqy,
He's
like
himself, but he's more mature than ever, man.
look, I mean, I was gonna ask questions earlier. I was gonna know, like, I mean, how much would Nisqy weigh if he would have stayed in NA? Because this guy, when he was in NA, all he did was eat, man. Like all this guy did was eat when he was in NA. Like he would just
I'm
tell me
still
about
eating a
all the
lot.
different.
I eat so much. I'm just not gaining weight. Like it's a cheat code.
Damn, it's a cheat code.
Yeah, Nisqy, we've taken up a lot of your time, and we appreciate it truly. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and then give the floor to you if you want to bring something up. I always bring up the story about how me and Ale went and saw the Aurora Borealis. And the people always tell me that I tell the story really wrong, but you were there. We went and saw the Aurora Borealis with Ale. You remember this? Can you tell your side of the story? You remember when we were in Iceland?
Iceland, yeah. And we did
We
what?
went and saw the Aurora Borealis with Ale.
Oh, this is so bad for Yamato, bro. This is now I know it's a
Nisqy.
fake story. It's a fake story, bro.
Wait,
What
wait.
is an
Can you repeat
Aurora
that like
Borealis?
slowly, okay?
Okay, so Ale, the top laner of LNG at the
Yes.
time, us together with him and Candice,
Yeah.
the hostess from LPL, we went and saw the Aurora Borealis at the beach.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yes,
Oh yeah, we did actually. We did.
it
we
was
did, we
great,
did.
no?
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually Worlds is so fun when you
Yeah.
speak to the other players. Like, bro, I go down, I see Light, or I don't remember, was it Ale or like maybe it was I don't remember who it was. ADC from I think FPX. What was it? Name?
LWX.
Yeah, LWX. I see LWX there with Candice, and I know Candice like really well. I sit down, and for like 2 hours, we speak about like I was asking him like so many like, okay, so what does the NB think of this? Like, how does he play this? You know, what's his philosophy? And I also have like their schedule, like their philosophy and whatever. And I feel like it's so nice to like speak to other people about like their view of the game and their view of league. Because I feel like in EU, it's very like limited. And for example, I asked him, I was like, yo, like, is Kog'Maw OP on mid? Or like, why does the NB like pick it all the time? And he's like, yeah, he thinks it's strong. So we try. And I'm like, okay, nice. I guess yeah, if he thinks it's strong, he just picks it and just blind picks it every game. So yeah.
Did you give him any tips back? Did he ask
no,
anything?
Nah, he didn't ask much.
They should have. Maybe that year would have gone better for FB.
Maybe, yeah. I had one topic I wanted to bring
Go
up.
for it.
Perfect.
I ranted yesterday on stream about how pro players do not think of their future. As in, no pro. I think it's very limited the amount of LEC players that stream or that do content or that interact with people or that go on like some desks or on some shows or like whatever, because I feel like they don't value whatever it brings to them. And I think I was kind of similar before. Like I think for example in my time in CNN, I probably didn't profit as much as I could, right? And I think that's a big thing because when you see players like, I mean, I don't want to name a player, but like when you see players like fail in LEC, what do you say?
Do it. No, I'm kidding. Just continue.
Like, remember, I think the Mad roster, bro. If I was in Ibai's team, bro, you would see me stream every single fucking day and like do shit with Ibai and like whatever, you know. And I feel like lots of pro players don't think of their future, like the brand and whatnot. And I think in EU before it was like Perks did it well. I mean, Reckless is like the OG one, right? Like he streamed a lot. Like he has the biggest fan base in the world. And it also like increases your like Yankos, yeah, like it increases your market value like crazy. And I feel like you also become a new person. I feel like when you speak to people so many times on stream, rather than just being in your cave and playing League. So that's something I said a while ago. I don't know what you guys think, but I think LEC players don't appreciate what they are at right now, and they don't use it for their future, like career or whatnot.
I think I agree fully with you that it's so crucial. I imagine also from Dom your side, like the streaming aspect of it, when you come up, like that was momentum that you carried over. It's like in terms of what streaming is, especially in terms of how you get acquired as a player too. Like that, just visibility is so important if just being a pro player is what you want to do. And also it gives you options. Like if you're in a situation where an off-season goes shit and you have no options at all in terms of gaining exposure, then you might just be screwed and you have to pick a team that maybe is really bad for you in your career. Just having options and making sure that you have a solid floor to stand on is so important, because like all of us have seen so many friends just come and go completely. And I think that you two are very, very good examples of what can be if you put your mind to it, for sure.
Yeah, from my perspective, this happens for like two different reasons. Number one is like the players just feel like the main thing that will drive their market value is just playing the best they can, and they view any of these content ideas as a hamper on their skill level, that it's going to take time and they won't be able to play as well. They just value the couple extra solo queue games like that they're playing by themselves as a advantage for them to, get a contract. And I think the other part of it is that now people are just paid a lot more than when players were, in my era. Like in my era of playing, my contract was in season 4 was $45,000 for the entire year. But in order to get paid in the summer, this is probably fucking illegal, bro. Like I don't even know if this is true, but like to get paid in the summer, we had to stream like 60 hours a month for those summer months, or our pay would drop for those months. So it was like you had to stream. It was part of the contract. And because you were making like, I mean, I'm not going to say 45K is so little, but it's super little compared to what people are paid now. Because people were getting paid so little back then, in comparison, it felt like you needed to do all these other things because it would increase your income by like, if you were able to make another 15K streaming, that would increase your income by 33%. Like that's fucking huge for a player. Whereas now, people are less popular. I think the leagues have lost popularity. So when people stream, they're getting like 200 viewers mainly, or like maybe even less, 150, 100 viewers. And it feels like it's just not worth for them. And then I think that the other thing is the players that do want to like create content or have like the idea or like think that they're like funny or they have a good personality, they just don't have the creativity to figure out like, how do I do that? Like, what do I need to do to put that out there? I think that's the hardest part about like having the content mentality, is understanding what you can do that's actually, content. And one of the things that we're doing on the show is hopefully we can platform some of these players, because we want to be able to talk to everyone. We're starting with you and Perks, obviously legendary players, but I mean, as time goes on, we're going to bring in other people and see if we can get that perspective out there, because I know there's a lot of things that could be contributed to the scene. And I think it'll be good for the scene in general, because right now LEC, LCS, like there is this vibe that like, oh, things are dying, people have this negative mentality about them. So having things like this, having avenues and things to talk about and bring up drama and talking about like how much you hate Elyoya and putting in the title of the YouTube video and getting clicks off that, like this is good for everyone, Nisqy. This is good for everyone. So I'm really happy that, we could have you here so we could, clickbait your name and everything.
Yeah. And also I think a lot of pros, I mean, when I ask them, usually they're like, yeah, but like I feel like it decreases my skill, or like I'm too lazy. But bro, like Doinb streamed I don't know how many hours, but when he won Worlds,
yeah,
like Chovy streaming. I mean, I'm watching his stream like every day. Faker stream every day. Like the top players do stream. I don't know if they're obligated to stream or if they like to stream, but in the end they are streaming and they're still the best at their roles. So I feel like that excuse is kind of gone. And I had the same before, where like Sneaky would stream a lot. And I would ask him like, yo, how do you stream so much? Like, doesn't it take you like energy? After scrims, I'm dead, And he was like, I mean, if you make it like part of your routine, then you will enjoy it. And that's kind of where I got mine from, was like kind of from Sneaky. And also I feel like when you get a following, like a slowly, like, I don't know, you start at 200, then it becomes 500, then suddenly you're at like 1K and you actually have a following, then you feel like people follow you for your actual career and not necessarily for like your stream. And then I feel like that's when you're just happy to stream like anytime you can and play the game you love, and then it just has a snowball effect,
Yeah. I can add in Korea, it's very common that the more higher profile players, they just, when the agents negotiate their contracts and they're getting paid more, usually like a part of that is like a streaming deal with often like Chinese websites.
Yeah.
Sometimes just the regular websites. It's like all of the big players. Like when I was in Sandbox, like Summit had to stream, Gorilla had to stream, like the big name players on the team just had to stream, and they didn't want to, but there's a great opportunity in that, and I think you make a good point that like all of the top end players are actually like streaming, so there's definitely excuses for sure that hold the region back. Dom, I think we are good to wrap up there, right? You want to drop something, Dom?
No, this has been a good episode. I like the flow of this one. Obviously, Nisqy is really easy to talk to. I mean, we both have been friends with Nisqy and known him personally for years at this point. So thought it was a good episode in the books. Thank you for being here, Nisqy, and we will see you guys next week for Sackdown episode 3.
I'm getting paid, right? Or
well, we buy you Zaddies. We buy you Zaddies. We buy you Zaddies. We buy you Zaddies. The usual. We buy you Zaddies and give you a good luck in fucking. We're gonna root for you to get to Worlds, man.
Nisqy is here for the love of the game. Look, doesn't even get paid, still here because he cares about the content that much and he cares about the growth of the LEC, like he said. So perfect. That's the end of the episode. We'll see you guys next time.